Hey everybody, Adam from Atlas Gunworks. Got a Staccato P here. P's come in a bunch of different versions, but our new retail aluminum grip will work great for a P. It'll work on any of the steel frame guns, so your XL, your XC, it should work well on. And then this is a full-size grip. It's going to replace the plastic grip with an aluminum grip. So I haven't taken a gun apart in a minute, and I haven't taken a Staccato apart in a hot minute. This is a brand new gun. We just came today. So we just bought a gun at retail to see what would happen. So I'm going to rip this thing apart and put the grip on, and it should work pretty well, and it should go pretty much how you guys have to do it. If you haven't done this before and you're not particularly mechanically inclined, this is probably a good one for your gunsmith. This is a really quick gunsmith swap, but we'll jump into it. And for all the guys who want to do it themselves, it should be pretty straightforward if you understand the gun a little bit. I always start by just getting the pin lined up for the slide stop. I pinch the gun out. Staccato's got a nice fat pin there. Gently push that out. Try not to scratch the gun. My parts are going to come up here. The parts I'm going to use, for the most part, punch, Allen key for the trigger. That's going to do multitasking. And then 1/8 inch Allen key and small screwdriver. And again, I haven't done this in a minute, so we'll just see what happens. So it's like we had a Dawson toolless guide rod in here. So we're going to take that out and set it up there. And then the top end of the gun, I really don't need to do anything else with. In fact, I probably didn't need to take that guide rod out. So top end of the gun sits, bottom end of the gun. So I like these little bench walks. There's lots of different ways to cut this. You'll need a hammer too. So we're going to dry it out this pin and get our mag well off. The Atlas kits do not come with a mag well, and they run our proprietary mag well system. So this mag well will be obsolete once we take it off. So mag well comes off. It's a dead part. I'll run the dead parts over here. Main spring comes out. That's plastic. I'll need the guts out of that. Thumb safety. Best way to get these off is to flip them up, and then you just start to wiggle a little bit as they come down. Of course, this pair's fit super tight, which is good. You want them tight, but you also want to be able to get them off. Usually there's a sweet spot as you wiggle them. I'm going to hold this and not, so it's hard for me, but easy for you to see. And you'll start to see a gap kind of come up here. There's a whole bunch of tricks to this. This one's not moving well at all. Post-it note and a screwdriver is a dangerous trick that some of us use a whole bunch. What'll normally happen on these is right here, you're going to start to get just a little bit of movement. And once that happens, you can get them off. This one doesn't want to move at all. And if you just keep wiggling, they start. So now it's starting to come off of there just a tad, not really much. Okay, everybody, this is what you get when you do it on the fly. So we got those safeties out. Those are as hard as about any safety to come out. So we're actually going to have to fit those to make them so that they're usable. They were super uber tight. That's not proper. So regardless, the gunsmiths are fitting the safeties right now, but they came out. One comes out right side, left side. Beaver tail comes out, or grip safety. I'm not going to use this, so that goes in my not used pile. I am going to reuse my sear spring, and then the best way for sure, I think, to do this, and if I had a small punch, I would use it, but I don't, so I'm going to use this. I'm going to knock out my hammer and my sear. My disco will fall out too. So 2 pins, 3 parts. We're going to try to reuse all those parts as well. There's doesn't look like they did it, but you can often kink this. I mean, I think the ones we sell are kinked. There's a little kink in this so it doesn't shoot out when you take the thumb safeties off. If it does, you got to go find it, but you can leave that in there as we go. At this point, we're ready to get the grip off of the gun. You know what I'm realizing I didn't mention was you'll need the small, I think there were 1/16 Allen keys. We're losing parts as we go, but we're going to replace these anyway and run the Atlas one, so that's fine. What I do is this is almost threaded out. It's just barely in there. And then I just pop it, stick my finger in here and spin it the last little bit. Otherwise, you'll need a punch potentially. So to do, discard those parts. They're still good parts too. Keep them in a bag. They're nice spares. So I'll need a punch for this. You can often use the back of your regular punch. So now I got the rear bushings out. We deal with the front bushings. Theo's coming back with those thumb safeties, it looks like, which we don't need for a couple minutes here. So 2 screws to a bushing, right? And in this case, 1 screw came out first. There's So this is unusual. Both screws came out, both small screws. Again, I'm going to discard those. Save them for backups. The bushing stayed in here, and that's unusual, or at least taking apart our guns. What we usually do is red Loctite one side, and then blue Loctite or a little bit of red Loctite on the other side, so that the one side of this bushing that's here holding the front of this on doesn't come off, or doesn't come off easily. So that's a trick we'll show you when we put it back together. This grip should be free. So there's a trigger in here I'm not going to reuse. There's a mag catch in here I'm not going to reuse. So this is going over to my pile of dead. This is a steel frame. They make steel and aluminum. Always be a little more ginger with the aluminum frames. But at this point, we're just going to reverse go here. We're going to reinstall. It does not hurt to put oil all over this. Just lube this right up, your metal on metal. The first version of these is going to be in silver, but we will do these in a coated version at some point. Now, in a perfect world, this just presses up just like that, and it's tight. So I'm making up these numbers, but hopefully we're pretty close. We're going to say 90% of them are going to be like this, right? I'm just going to lube it up, push it up, everything lines up, and it's not super loose. It can be a little bit loose, but it can't be like flopping around. So you should be able to move it, move it around and have it kind of hold there. So this is a 90%er. We're hoping to get that on most of the grips. We're holding pretty tight tolerances on our grips, but on the Staccato frames, I don't have any clue what kind of tolerance they hold. So we're just gonna go backwards here and start reinstalling. We're gonna run our grip bushings. So the trick to this is I hold it on one finger, I come in here, I kind of find the spot, it should push in there. It's gonna be just a little bit crooked in the frame, and then there's a trick to this. So in the rear, everybody's different in how kind of their climate and how good they are. Ideally, you're cleaning these parts with alcohol before you put any Loctite on them, but everyone's a little bit different. But you're gonna put a little bit of blue Loctite on the rear grip bushing. So what I do is I start that grip bushing, and then I use that to pull this underneath. So if I need to adjust, I use this finger to kind of rotate, but if you look under there, that needs to slide under the frame. And if the little ear is sticking up and you crank too hard, you'll break the ears off. So you want to make sure that slides under. Do one side, and then check these. Any screw you put in with Loctite, if your Loctite's old or you didn't clean it well enough, or you're using the wrong grade Loctite, or it's super hot, there's a million factors, but you want to check these screws every now and then. When you do a little mini clean, or before if you go do a hot day and you're shooting 1,000 rounds in the heat, the gun's gonna heat up and gonna need to check that Loctite. So if in that case, you can always do either more of the same Loctite, so in this case 242 blue, you can do more volume, or you can step up and go to a red and lower your volume. So this one was fighting me a little bit, and I kind of just played with it, and it's starting to just pull under that frame, and there we go. We didn't break anything, so that worked well. On the front side, the way I've done it for years, and I know the gunsmiths here sometimes have better processes than what I've done for years, but since I'm doing the video, you're getting the way that we did it 10 years ago. In fact, there was 2 versions we did of this. The one version was, especially with the open guns, what we used to do is we'd take one side and we'd actually use a green Loctite that was semi-permanent, and that side would never move, and then we put a dab of red on the other side. In this case, I'm gonna do what I think is going to work well for this gun with a little bit less pressure through it, not an open gun. For those of you that aren't USPSA folks, open guns are shooting like 50,000 PSI plus P++ ammo, so nuclear ammo to some degree. Don't be shy with the Loctite on the blue on this one. So blue on the one side, maybe just a little less, but I want it pretty much on the whole thing. The red, I would say use a medium amount. We just start that over there, and I'm going to let the blue pull it across. This front bushing's kind of a placeholder. It really isn't super critical. I got a little Loctite on the gun. I'll just take that off. All right, so we're in. The grip bushings are on. I'm gonna again check my fit a little bit. This thing's tight. Pretty much the gaps are, there's no big gaps anywhere. It's not like I got this in the thing and it's all torqued. So it looks like we're flying here. We put the mag catch in. So I know we have videos that say don't grease these or whatever. There's two places, and we're getting into it right here in the grip, where you can put grease on 1911s. One is where I'm putting oil right here. I'm not going to grease this one, but you could if you love grease. This isn't a spot where grease is good. I typically just oil them. That's pretty captured. So that goes in and rotates, and then there's a slot in the grip. So sometimes these are a little bit tight. You can work them. You probably want to work that in and out a few times. If there's a few burrs or something in here that normally the gunsmiths would take off. So you want to make sure everything's free moving all the time. Don't just jam it in there. This is going to be out just a little bit, and you're going to turn this back to the right to put that little key slot into the frame. So I was just moving around a little bit. There's a little spot in there where it'll start to go. Yeah, it's that far out, so it's good ways. And then it's rotating off of there. So make sure it's moving. Again, something to check later is that maybe that hit a little burr or something and it's getting tight. Just take it apart, clean it. That should all go away. So you got a mag catch in there. Mag catches are made from stainless steel, 17.4. Okay, moving on. We're gonna get the trigger parts back into this gun. So first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna discard this plastic mainspray housing, but I gotta get the guts out to put the guts in here. And we're doing that to keep the triggers the same. If we ran the Atlas guts in there, we run a lighter hammer spring than these guys do. So doing a trigger job is a separate thing. You can certainly do that to one of these guns. There's a couple different ways to do this, and if you do this a lot and you're a gunsmith, put a post like this, or actually we just drill a hole and have one of these into the side of our bench, but actually on the side of the workbench right here. And it's just quick, and use it at 90 degrees. It works really fast. But if you don't do this very often, just stick a pin in here. You're going to depress that spring, and you're going to push that little pin out. And I'm going to take this complete unit, right? So discard, and then right into the new one. Some people say that you should use a longer post on these. Ours are longer, be a little fancier. For what we're doing, it probably doesn't matter a lot. This is the second place in the gun you could use grease. Again, I'm not going to, but you could. But definitely put a little oil. These are machines, right? So lube's always good. Lubricants are good. You got to push it down a bunch, stick that pin back in, and we're live. This pin was the original that came in here. I won't need that again. Again, save those parts. You never know when you'll need them. There's a test too. You want to put this back in here. Just push it a couple of times to make sure it moves freely. You're going to kind of do that with everything you do. So our trigger bow is going to work super good in this. So again, you really want to run our trigger bow. Our trigger bow threads in here like this. Some people are running them without Loctite, but most people are Loctiting them. Kind of, so this is adjustable, remember? So you get to, oh, you know what? You guys can laugh at me. You're supposed to put all that in before you put this on the gun. We're going to jump back in when I have the trigger in here, but I'm going to take the screws off and pull this off real quick. Hey, everybody. We fixed that problem, and if you don't do this every day, sometimes you forget. So trigger in before you put the grip on. When you put the trigger in, before you put it on the grip, make sure it moves freely, and then when you bolt it down, make sure it moves freely. It should if you're using ours. If you're using the Staccato one, we might do a video at some point on that. The Staccato one's going to be oversized in our frame, and you're going to have to cut the Staccato down or file the frame out. The one thing we did, because this isn't actually getting fit for us, is leave the post long, which you want to trim that post down if you have a short trigger and you'd run it all the way in. And we'll probably do a video, put that on the video list we'll do as well. But this all feels great. I'm going to get the trigger components right back in this gun. So lots of videos probably on the internet of me doing trigger jobs, but I like to stick my finger in here. So right down the center, I'm holding it here. I take the disconnector and I drop it on here and set it up so it's sitting on the back of my trigger bow and it's in the hole. And then I take the sear and I kind of just drop it over there, and that one worked out really nicely. So it just fell in there. It should. Sometimes you can put those in as one unit. And then if I turn it sideways and you look here, I just push my finger a little bit this way and it lined the hole up. So if you do this enough, now it's moved. But if you do this enough, you can go to just putting that in there, and then this pin will just slide right in. And you're going through two parts here, so sometimes a little bit of finesse. So you want to make sure that the pin has gone through the sear, and then there's a big hole in the disconnector. It's in there, so give it a little rattle, make sure your disconnector doesn't fall out. The hammer's much easier. You can hold the hammer the whole time while you're right here, line it up. So hammer's good there. Sear spring, I am gonna make one adjustment, and not everyone does this. So a lot of the gunsmiths here would put this back in normally, and here's a good video. That's the wrong way. If you looked right here, I'm underneath the sear. You need to be on top of the sear, like that, right? Because this returns the sear spring and this returns your trigger bow. I don't like this to push on non-moving. So you could do it with a needle nose pliers, or you just do it with your fingers, but I'm gonna straighten this so it doesn't have a lot. So it's kind of just out of the way. Always can bend it back and make it work if you want the grip safety to work someday. So that sits in there, it's in the right spot. People get caught again by that a lot, and times that'll slip underneath there. So we're gonna put the mainspring housing in. These are really tight. We run pretty tight tolerances on most of our parts. So a little bit of oil there goes a long way. I'm gonna push that up. As it comes up and gets close, I'm gonna have to back it up just a little bit. And then I kind of just float and try to do this so you guys can see. I just kind of float this, and then I get it. And that needs to be in that pin there. And then I'm going to leave a little bit here. The beaver tail is going to come in and just pop in like this again. So this beaver tail's didn't get bead blasted, so it's got a little bit of, got some extra little metal shavings on it. So just make sure you clean all the parts off, check all the corners, what we would call a deburr. I think we're gonna have some small process for that here, but ultimately you're gonna want to potentially fit these, so we're not doing a ton of work to these. So again, I like to come in the bottom and roll that up, and then once that's up, I do this on the side of the bench, so you won't be able to see it, but I just push here. If this was the side of the bench, I just push here, and then once that whole zero's up, I run the pin through. And this one's just about there without me doing anything. And I don't have the right length pin. So these will come with a shorter pin. This pin's set up for a magwell. So these will come with a shorter pin, and the magwell will come with the longer pin. So we have this pretty much good to go. I'm gonna cock the hammer, try to hear 2 clicks, right? Catch the half click in the regular. I'm gonna put my thumb here. So when I pull the trigger, I'm gonna check and see if I got about the same. I need to have a fair amount of return here. This is probably like the gun was, it has quite a bit. Put my mag catch back in from my trigger drop. Again, it popped out a little bit. So I like this. This all feels good. I'm gonna push on that disconnector and make sure it pops back up. So I push on the disconnector, it doesn't get stuck. So I'm feeling pretty good about this. The last thing is this thumb safeties. When you have the thumb safeties on the bench, they just push together just like this, right? And they just, that's how they fit in the gun, right? They're just pressed in there. So it's just this little connection. It's super basic, right? It's a 115-year-old design. Longer than that if you actually get the inception of the original design. So these have to kind of be just right. So we just tune these. So you're gonna see how easy it is to put this together and take apart. That's what it's supposed to be like. We're going to do a separate video on how to tune these, probably after SHOT Show here. So I'm going to put this together and then take it right apart so you can see. So on the weak side for me, and then this tab goes into the frame, right? And then the hammer has to be back because this part has to get by the sear. So the hammer has to be back. And then you've got this pin to contend with, right? We've got that pin sticking there. The tool, the 1911 tools work great for that. So push the pin out of the way, and then these two need to be at a similar angle, and they should just go right together. And see that snapped right together. And a little wiggle there is good in case you don't have them lined up. So you saw in the beginning of the video how hard it was to take the original one apart. See this one? It just came right apart and open. And when you heard me put it together, it kind of snapped. It's going to do that when it comes apart, just like that. I take it apart in my hands. That's the way it's supposed to be. If you were looking at an Atlas thumb safety, and thumb safeties take a fair amount to fit in these things, so I'm not advocating everyone do this, but if you were looking at an Atlas one, there'd be a little notch here, and the little notch just lets the screwdriver just sit in there with it, pop it out with. Again, I like to do it with the Post-it note. Thumb safeties moving up and down positively. That's good. The top limit on this is sometimes the slide, so we don't know if the top limit's working, but I'm going to check to make sure if I pull the trigger, the hammer doesn't fall when the safety's up, or after I put it down. We'll do all those checks again, but effectively, I now have an Atlas grip on my Staccato, Now this is going to do a whole bunch of things. The weight is pretty similar between the aluminum and the plastic, a little more weight on the aluminum, but it's way more rigid. And the aluminum has not a ton of flex. So what you get with the plastic grips is it absorbs the energy and then it gives it back. And the more rigid your grip is, the less it's going to absorb and then get back. So it does change the recoil pattern of the guns quite a bit. And with a medium firm grip, it will really level the guns out a whole bunch. So huge upgrade in every way. So you got to run an Atlas magwell if you're going to put a magwell on there. So this gun's super dry. Run your 1911s like you run your ARs. Just get everything wet, much better wet. So I'm just going to lube this thing right up. I like some on the top of the disco. I do like a stripe right down the middle of the guide rod. And then another trick so that you can see that the can't quite get the length. So I just stick a small something in there, hold it, pull it back a little bit, and then get it right where I want it. And I just hold it there and slide this through. The nice thing about the round slide stobs is that they do line up a lot quicker. They don't look as cool, but they line up quicker. This gun's just a smidge tighter than it was before. So again, a lot of lube, and then we're gonna want to go test fire this one. So we've got a couple checks left to do. I'm gonna put the front grip bushings back in this gun from our trigger swap. And then I would say that you're gonna put a couple hundred rounds absolute bare minimum in here. So I wouldn't say 50 rounds is, we're happy with the whole setup. Okay, so I'm good here. It's a little bit tighter than it was. So we're gonna go shoot it and break it in, but we're gonna do some bench testing first. We're gonna do a separate video. The non-moving beaver tail leaves just this little bit of an edge here. It is possible to get rid of that, especially on the silver ones. It's pretty comfortable, so I think from a function standpoint, you don't need to. But if you want to, we'll show a video on how we would tune that here on an existing gun to make that all blend in. You know, if you bought an Atlas gun, that would all be hand blended. And then we're gonna do some function tests. So I would take the mags you've been shooting, regardless of whether the Staccato mag or not. Make sure the mags are in there. Make sure to lock the gun back. And then I check and make sure nothing's touching. So mags seem to work. I'm gonna do my safety checks, pull really hard. Hammer didn't drop, push the safety down, wait, make sure the hammer still doesn't drop, pull the trigger, make sure the hammer does drop. The other test is to pinch this like this and push away and make sure your hammer stays back. The proper way to do this when you go shoot it is just to have one round in the first mag and then two, and then you can go up to 5 or 10, but in case you do have hammer follow, or have the gun pointed in a very safe direction where hammer follow and isn't going to be a problem. Yeah, put a couple hundred rounds through it and you should be good to go. So that is a 90%, the frame fits well on the grip video. We'll do some of the 10% ones where it's much tougher to get the frame on, where it's a little tighter. And that's just a little bit more work, a little bit of file work, but we're hoping that 90% of them should be good to go, just like this one. Hope to see you on the range soon.